So let's move on to what's happened this week. Anne Sacoolas was sentenced to an 8-month suspended sentence for causing the death of teenage motorcyclist Harry Dunn by careless driving.
Let's now welcome our resident lawyer and broadcaster, Andrew Eborn, to discuss the case further. Andrew, an 8-month suspended sentence for the life of Harry Dunn. I mean, most people will probably look at this and think, that doesn't really seem like justice.
It's absolutely... It's a tragic, tragic case, and there's been lots of twists and turns throughout it, because basically this lady is the wife of a US diplomat who was stationed at an RAF station. And originally, she was claiming diplomatic immunity, which meant she wouldn't have been charged at all, because under diplomatic immunity, you can get away with all sorts of crimes and civil actions and so on and so forth. As a result of political pressure, she eventually sort of confessed and said, well, OK, I will stand trial, but I won't go for the case against me of dangerous driving, which is a far more serious offence. I'll just go for careless driving. And basically, the judge praised the family. Charlotte Charles is the mother. She's worked very, very tirelessly to make sure that justice for Harry is done there. And what happened, Dominic Raab as well, he was sort of basically, there were anomalies about protecting family members as well as the US diplomats. So what happened is, for the charge of careless driving, the maximum sentence is 5 years, and you can get banned for a minimum of 1 year. For dangerous driving, it's up to 14 years. But you're right, 8 months is nothing in terms of that sort of stuff. But the judge, in giving her judgment, she turned out and said, well, hang on, I can't give a community order because she's not going to come here ever. She fled the country 19 days after the accident and has said she's never returned. The US has refused flatly to allow extradition to take place, so they're not going to let her come back. And so what's happened is that she's basically done this remotely. She appeared at the Old Bailey via video link, and the family said they'd been disgusted with the way that they've been treated. But they felt as though finally they've got justice, even though the sentence, I think, is lenient. They finally feel as though they got at least some sort of justice for Harry, because at one stage she wasn't even going to turn up for court.
Because if the maximum sentence is 5 years, you sort of think to yourself, well, what if this gets 8 months suspended, what do you have to do in order to get the maximum sentence? But is there a suspicion, therefore, that this was sort of a convenient sentence that was given out? Because obviously, if the judge had sentenced her to prison, that would have caused another diplomatic row, and that this was a sort of an easy way out, so to speak.
Well, I don't know if it's an easy way out, because she will have that sentence, and effectively, even though it's suspended, it still counts as a prison sentence. It's about the practicalities. You're right, and when you're looking at that sort of situation, the judge in their sentencing has to take into account a couple of things. One, are there any aggravating circumstances, such as alcohol or so on and so forth? What was happening in this particular case? She was driving on the wrong side of the road. She called it the American side of the road. She travelled about 350 yards and tragically hit Harry, who was only 19 at the time, whilst he was on his motorbike. So it happened there. When they're looking at whether there are any mitigating circumstances in sentencing, whether she helped at the scene and so on and so forth, I would have argued the fact that she fled the country 19 days afterwards, that's hardly mitigation. And what I really feel about these sort of things is, whilst we look at the esoteric legal side, there's a human tragedy here. And seeing the grief and the pains and the hoops that the family had to go through as a result of this, it just added, I thought, to the pain. But the families themselves said, look, they want to move on. They don't want to meet the woman now, that time has passed. But what they want to do is say, look, we've got some justice for Harry, because now, at one stage, he wasn't going to get anything at all.
And I was going to say that I actually thought Harry's mum was so gracious when this sentence come out. I mean, if it had been me, I could have had the screaming habdabs and might have been claiming I wanted 5 years, not a suspended 8-month sentence. But she was gracious. She was pleased it had been heard. As she'd had so many years fighting for this. She might have got nothing, but she was pleased this woman will have a criminal record. And that's what she went, and she felt now she's got peace, and I think that's the most important thing.
It is. I mean, James Cleverly said she had incredible resolve for the family, and I think, if you think of it, people close to you, it's absolutely tragic, and you'll be absolutely furious. You want the maximum possible. The family are moving on. I do think we need to look at the whole thing about diplomatic immunity. They've closed one loophole, but this sort of situation, it was never intended when diplomatic immunity was set up.
Andrew Eborn, thank you very much, as ever, for joining us.